When women joined together across class lines to remedy deteriorating working and living conditions, they changed the way in which American law and administration treated working people. The collaboration of women ultimately set the stage for legal intervention that would eventually help not only women, but all workers. Equally important, the struggle of the progressive period, as exemplified by the garment workers, played a significant role in legitimizing the regulation of capital, which had historically resisted the idea that governments could control or influence the way people spent their accumulated resources. The sources of these changes lay in the alliances of women. Following the 1909 strike, the trade union movement grew rapidly, led, for women, by garment workers. In 1914, the Chicago-based Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America joined the ILGWU to organize workers in the men's clothing industry. Together, they organized sufficient numbers of workers in the industry to propose a new strategy to employers. The Protocols of Peace followed an idea suggested by future Supreme Court Justice Louis Brandeis. Employers and the union, Brandeis proposed, should sign contracts to ensure employers a more peaceful workforce while providing them with a level of security and predictability as to work and wages. Toward this end, the Protocols of Peace regulated working hours and set specific wages for specific tasks. Because piecework rates were often exploitative, the protocols raised them. The protocols set up arbitration provisions to resolve union and employer disagreements. A stronger union movement managed to create community among the workers themselves. In the beginning, this was fostered by women who, joining Locals 22 and 25 of the ILG, the International Ladies Garment Workers Union, thought that women needed more than just higher wages. Allies joined together to create summer schools for women workers. Union leader Rose Schneiderman argued that women required roses as well as bread. Her colleagues developed health centers and educational programs in response. The women of Local 25, the dressmakers local, asked for and got union-sponsored summer camps, vacation holidays for workers, restrooms at work, after-work educational programs, and more. Later, the garment unions developed mandolin orchestras for members and for the children of members. They organized basketball teams and other sports teams. And out of these, they created an interracial cooperation that had not previously existed within the trade union movement. Allies and non-unionized women pushed for protective labor legislation. Together, they recognized that if women were not going to get the full support of male unions, they would have to turn to the state for labor legislation to provide maximum hours, minimum wages, and an end to night work. We'll look at protective labor legislation more closely because this is perhaps the most significant of the gains that came out of this period. But for the moment, let's just put it aside. On a broader scale, wage-earning women and their allies became the leading edge of the progressive effort to tame capital. In joining with trade unions to foster women-only legislation, they convinced owners of capital to recognize that it could and should be restrained if reasonable conditions were to be achieved, and that those reasonable conditions were necessary to perpetuate the very industries that they ran. Employers, in this case the garment factory owners, and soon large corporations, would begin to recognize that negotiated wages, pensions, overtime pay, and even vacation pay, though costly, provided them with a more stable workforce. The idea that it was in the best interests of corporations to treat workers fairly certainly didn't begin with the garment unions, but the women who formed the vast majority of garment union members helped to put this idea on the table. The idea that capital needed to be constrained or regulated in order that working people should get a reasonable share of the profits would come to fruition in the 1930s and guide social policy for the rest of the century.